Can you carry a gun in Texas without having a license or any other sort of permit? And if you're wondering, this is not a real gun. This is actually one of the most deadly weapons known to flying insects. So Bugsmith, thank you. And if you would want to sponsor one of these videos, we'd be happy to have you because we do love and enjoy your products. So in Texas, constitutional carry is a very, very important law that was pretty recently enacted. And what makes it important is that it gives certain people that aren't disqualified from carrying a weapon the ability to carry a weapon in a concealed or open manner, depending on the situation. Now, the important things to know about constitutional carry are that it does not mean you can have a firearm with you wherever you go. In fact, there's a lot of restrictions built into the law so that firearms can only be had and taken into certain places. So we're gonna go over some of those because I think those are the most important things where people could potentially get jammed up. We've seen situations where somebody goes to a private business, for instance, that posts a sign that complies with the actual statute, and it says, basically you're not welcome to have a firearm in here, which private businesses are perfectly obliged to do. There's no issue with that. Sometimes you'll see a little back and forth with someone saying, hey, I have constitutional carry rights in Texas, Second Amendment rights. Well, that's not how the law was drafted. Now, as a little bit of an aside, some of the sort of loose historical precedent for this happening in Texas. As everybody knows, here in Texas, we love our guns. This is sort of a state level, some sort of flavor of state level enforcement of the Second Amendment, saying, hey, citizens, you have the right to arm yourselves in certain situations in certain places. So I'm going to go over some exclusions to this so that you know where not to carry your gun if you want to engage in constitutional carry. So number one, in schools, it's still illegal to have your firearm on a physical premises of a school. So very, very important to remember that, especially because sometimes we just have our gun with us and we walk in somewhere not even thinking about it. It's almost like another article of clothing, but very important there. Government buildings. In certain government buildings, in jails, courthouses, and in prisons, you cannot have your firearm. And hey, this makes sense, guys, all right? These are places that are typically emotionally charged. There's a lot of officers there already. They need to maintain control and sort of order over the place because there's just a lot of moving pieces, all right? Next is gonna be hospitals, all right? Now, no weapons are allowed in hospitals. I don't know why they carved out that exception. I think it probably applies in the same way, or the thought behind it was sort of the same thought that they put into government buildings. But nonetheless, no hospital carrying other than people who would be authorized to have their weapon in hospitals anyway. Sporting events. So there's sporting events that you can't take your weapon to. Bars and restaurants. Now, here's the key here. Here's the key for this one, and this one's a little tricky, all right? The restaurant or bar has to derive more than 51% of their revenue from the sale of alcohol for this one to apply. So, if you go somewhere and assuming that the private business hasn't put up some sort of sign that complies with the statute that says, hey, you can't have guns in here, assuming you go somewhere that serves no alcohol, you may be perfectly okay. But this one is one of those things where it's really hard to, sort of make that on-the-spot judgment call. Now, there's probably really obvious places, like a bar that almost only serves alcohol. Okay, then we're looking at something that's more common sense, and potentially there's a criminal charge if you're found carrying a weapon there. So just be very, very careful about that. Polling places, so no taking it to where you can vote. And lastly, airports. We've all been through TSA security checks. Don't go taking your gun into El Paso International Airport saying Texas constitutional carry. Now, I'm just going to run down these in bullet point style so we can sum it up and you could just take these away. Schools, government buildings, hospitals, sporting events, bars and restaurants, polling places, and airports. So if you're going to any of those places, you may want to think twice about taking your weapon, even under constitutional carry. Lastly, it's really important to note that what I said at the beginning is just something to pay particular attention to, which is constitutional carry doesn't apply to everybody. It only applies to certain people. So for instance, if you have a felony conviction, that prevents you from having a weapon. This doesn't change any of that. So this is really for people who could otherwise carry a weapon with them legally. We're going to do a couple more videos. One is going to outline what the differences are between constitutional carry and a license to carry, or an LTC, where you need some training and you go through some other stuff. But again, summary for this video: be careful where you take your weapon under constitutional carry. For reference, this is under House Bill 1927, so you guys can go take a look at that. We'll post a link to that here as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the law firm, and we're happy to answer them for you.